go over some of the test questions that were a little troublesome for some. So you were asked to find out what the graph would look like if you were given the equation x plus ay equals b if both a and b are positive. Now this wasn't exactly the way the question was phrased on the original test. I'm just taking a different version of it. But what you had were various options, and you were supposed to take this equation and somehow figure out which option that was. Well, let me show you how you could have figured that out. You're trying to figure out how to graph this equation. So for starters, you're going to subtract, whoops, this equals b. You're going to subtract x from both sides. So ay is going to be a negative x plus b. I placed the negative x first because I'm trying to get this into the y equals mx plus b form. Next, I'm going to divide everything by a. And so y equals negative x over a plus b over a. Okay, so now I know a and b are positive. So now what can I do with this to figure out what this looks like? I know a and b are positive. So will b over a actually be positive? Yes, it will. Okay, good. So my y-intercept needs to be positive. I also know that my slope is, well, a is positive, and look, I have the inverse of x, so I have a negative slope. So I know that my answer has to be A, B, or C, because D and E both have positive slopes. Now I also know that my y-intercept has to be positive, so I can now exclude the answer of B. Now how do I determine whether it goes through the origin or not? Well, A and B have to be positive. So is B allowed to be equal to 0? No. Is 0 positive? No. So it cannot be C, and that's why the correct answer was A. The next one that gave some people difficulty was this one. Consider the triangle with these vertices. Form a second triangle by joining the midpoints. Repeat this to get a third triangle. How are the slopes of the third triangle related to the first and second? So what you could have done is calculated your slopes based on being given 2 points. So if I'm trying to calculate this slope here, I could take the difference, between my y values and the difference between my x values. And I'd have a slope of 3/2. Or I could have looked here and said, look, it goes up. Why does this suddenly look off? Hold on. This is slightly off. There we go. I say, look, it goes up 1, 2, 3 over 2. 1, 2, 3 over 2. Okay, so now let's look at this slope here. So I go down 1, 2, 3, 4 over 2. So actually, I have a positive slope here, so this is 3/2. Now I went down 4 and over 2, so that's a negative 4 over 2 or a negative 2 slope. Okay, whoops. And then finally, let's look at this last side. And so I go down 1 and over 1, 2, 3, 4. Down 1, down 1 and over 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that gives me a negative 1/4. Okay, now I need to go in and, let's take these out. Now I need to go in and find the slopes of my next triangle. So how about this slope? So that goes down 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1, 2. Okay, so that has a slope of down 4 and over 2. That has a slope of negative 2. All right, now I'm going to, let's look at this side. I go up 1, 2, 3, and over 2. Okay, that has a slope of 3/2. Interesting, that's what I had over here. All right, and now for this final side, I go down 1 and to the right 4, so I have a negative 1/4. Oh, look, that's what I got right there. Okay, so now finally I have to make my third triangle. So I'm already seeing some similarities between my first and second triangle. So my third triangle, again, is taking the midpoints. So I get that this is at 1/2, but I'm just going to approximate, and I think I'll probably be okay. So get a different color. So here I am at the point, so this looks like I'm going to go up 1.5 and to the right 1. So this has a slope of 1.5 or 3/2. And then to find this bottom side, it looks like I go down 1/2 and to the right 2. So if I go down 1/2 and to the right 2, if I turn that into a whole number fraction with integer values, then I'd get a -1/4, which makes sense because I've had that as a slope. I'm noticing a pattern here. And then finally, this last slide, or side, I go down 1.5, go down 2, I'd say, and over 1. So that has a slope of -2. So now, as you can see, I have a slope of 3/2 here, 3/2 here, and 3/2 here. Here is a slope of -2, here's a slope of -2, and here's a slope of -2. So you can now, as you can see, relate the slopes of all 3 of those triangles, just by simply graphing those points and calculating the slope. Finally, we're asked to find the value of k, so the graphs of 4y equals kx minus 6 and 5x plus 20y equals 12 are parallel. Okay, so first of all, let's get these into y equals mx plus b. So I'll divide everything by 4. I know I want things to be parallel, so I'm going to be focused on the slope. Now let's subtract 5x from both sides. Let's divide everything by 20. Notice I had -5 over 20, and that's how I got a -1/4. So I want things to be parallel, so I need -1/4 to be equal to k over 4. So if k over 4 needs to equal -1/4, what does k, the value of k, what does k need to be equal to? K has to be a -1.